Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Real Talks. I'm your host, David Steele. I hope everybody is having a safe and happy weekend. So I thought we would, sorry about the delay. So I'm here going to be talking about the new episode of The Mandalorian and what I thought of it and all that good stuff. And so, um, so right off the top, I gotta say, so I took a couple notes as I always do during the show to kind of get my thoughts in order. So the first thing I noticed right off the top, okay, um, so last week's episode was TRT. Okay, so TRT is total running time. That means from the credits in the very beginning to the credits at the very end. Okay, that's TRT, and it applies to film too. So on the show, if I'm ever talking about TRT, that's what it means. It's total running time. Okay. So the TRT of last week's episode, okay, um, was 59 minutes. That's a long time. That's an hour show. Okay. You take out the credits the previously on and the credits of the actual show, you're talking about probably the better part of 54 minutes, which is very good. Which is very good. Um, this week, okay, was 33 minutes total. Like total. 33 minutes. Um, I That's a huge disparaging difference. That's a whole show. Okay. I'm not saying had to be long. I guess my thing is this. You really can't go from having a 50, let's call it a 54-minute show, okay, to 33 minutes. That's 19 minutes, okay, or even call it 28 minutes. You're talking about a 15 to 16 to maybe 17-minute differential. This definitely could have been longer. Absolutely could have been longer. I think that it was to its detriment that it wasn't longer. Um, I mean, even balance them out. Like have it, last week's be 45, this week's be 47, something like that. And I think that's so important because when you have balance, people know, okay, this is going to be right around 45, 47, 48 minutes at most. So yeah. Anyways, that was the very first thing I noticed. And it definitely, I got to say, my overall thoughts, it definitely could have used more content. Definitely. And let me dive into that and let everybody know why. So at the very beginning of the episode, okay, we see that Grogu is actually playing with some rocks, so we think they're rocks, and Mando comes over and says, "Hey kid, time to start your training." So it's kind of cute because you see this kid who's a youngling, okay, and basically he is, you know, Mando basically says, "I want him to, challenge him," and so he puts some darts on his arm there, and you know, the kid gets a couple of quick shots in, and then he says it's 3 to win. Then of course, you know, Grogu comes over, flies over him, and then flies back and shoots all 3 darts at him, and he wins. And it was cute to see. It actually made me laugh. It was that was one of the very few bright points of this. Um, but yeah, it was fun. Um, and so you're starting to see not only this, but in this picture here, you're starting to see the Mandalorians train. Now, we don't know if this is like basic training for them to, um, to keep sharp, or is this for something that might be coming? That's an interesting little tidbit or nugget. Um, So I don't know. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see if there is um, a character, not a character arc, but a story arc that happens here. Although there wasn't any dialogue said or anything else, so I suspect this is just one of those things where you're seeing the Mandalorians just keep sharp, keep on their toes, and be good warriors and everything else. Um, so this, so the kid that challenges gets child by Roku, okay, ends up getting taken away by this raptor. They call them raptors. They look like a dragon, whatever. Um, and so that, as I said, that was one of the few things, the Groku training and the Mando training, that I really liked. Um, and it was one of the few highlights. It was one of the few highlights. So when the child gets taken, that child there, okay, then they go after him, and so Bo-Katan actually finds the place, and then they put together a plan to actually try and go get the child. And so once that happens, so they're flying, and they're chasing the dragon. So what I saw, a couple of amazing. I imagine they were done by drones. I can't imagine any other way they were done. But a couple of really cool, amazing drone shots. Um, and so yeah, and then the POV shot on the jetpack. That was really cool. I mean, using GoPros to try and get a first person POV. That was really cool to see too. Um, so then, so they find the place, and then they assemble, a bunch of different Mandalorians, and the armor basically says, guides them and what they're gonna have to do. So they get to a certain point, and they start making the journey. They stay overnight. That there's a fire, and then so in the morning they go to the rest of the journey. And so in the meantime, I found it very interesting that the so the armor actually is starting to prepare something for Goku, which was really cool to see. The cross cutting between that. So we get something, and it's a flashback to Order 66. And it was interesting because so this actually little snippet was in the trailer, and it was good. It was good. I mean, we've seen this before in other Star Wars lore. So, and then of course, so Grogu was there, and I imagine it was. I don't know if it was a vision he was having, or if it was. So while the armor was preparing his armor, okay, he as it was banging down, he was starting to have flashbacks. Well, I imagine flashbacks. We see him as flashbacks, but it was probably a memory for him, and it was Order 66. And so he's led away to a different location, and so this is the Easter egg. I didn't know this, and I don't think a lot of people knew this, but this is the Easter egg of this episode is uh Admon Best, the man who voiced Jar Jar Binks all the way back in 1999. Okay. Um, he is now in this episode. So one of the Jedi gets shot as they're putting him into the turbo lift, and then Groku's just standing there looking up at the floors, and the door opens, and that's who you see. Now, if you didn't know this, like myself, okay, you would think, okay, it's just another actor. But that's, we're starting to see this more and more now, getting these callbacks too. Whether it's, in the new Mission Impossible movie that's coming out, or, even in, I think there were a couple callbacks in Top Gun, the new Top Gun, and all this stuff. So retro is starting to become cool again, right? So now we have Admon Best. So he is leading him away, you know, and to safety. And so then they land, and so there's a little bit of a battle, and Groku's led away. And so I got to say one thing. Even though this story was lacking, there were some very good things. The visual effects, I got to say, the visual effects for Groku were awesome. They really took their time, and you see him, his little body walking and everything else. It's fantastic. It's really, really good. Um, I mean, much better than, I mean, back then, this was 25 years ago, too. So, I mean, but it was really, really good. You wouldn't know that he's a puppet. You wouldn't know that he's a puppet at all. I really enjoyed it. Um, but that was one of the few things. So as I said, we got a flashback to Order 66, and I noticed something else too. Maybe I'm wrong about this. Somebody could correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Um, but the ship that they escape on was the same ship that was used in Phantom Menace. So they are on Coruscant, by the way. That's where the temple is, and it was the same ship used in Phantom Menace. So I happen to notice that because of the shape and the design and everything else. But yeah, so that was a nice little Easter egg and callback too. Um, but it was, so getting back to the cross cutting, so we're seeing the armor actually make some armor for Groku, and I thought it was really cool the cross cutting they used between her hammering the armor, okay, or making the armor, and Groku's face and the expressions. And it was, him cooing and owing and eyeing, and it was very cool. And so this is the escape, as I was saying, and it's one of those things where he's looking down. I like the little pod that Groku has now, you know, um, very cool. But nonetheless, like it's just very interesting to see. So now he's starting to get adapted to the Mandalorian traditions. Um, but going back to the story, so the Mandalorians find the raptor, as they're called, with a dragon. Which, by the way, the effects for that were fantastic. I got to say, the effects in this, while I didn't like the content of the episode, I thought the effects were amazing. Between Grogu and the dragon and everything else, it was really good. Um, the chase. Um, so yeah, so they go and they find the dragon or the raptor, and um, they're able to get the child back and bring the child back to you know the hideout, and so everything ends well. Um, it was a very basic episode, you know. Um, it wasn't too, what's the word I want to use? It wasn't too congested. Okay, it was only right around 28 minutes. Um, so what was, as I said, so the boy gets back. Yeah, so this was actually directed by Carl Weathers, and so it was good. I mean, it wasn't anything fantastic. I thought there definitely could have been some more content there. We see the one shot with Bo-Katan where, and it was really like only a 2-minute conversation she has with the armor about the Minosaur. Now, the Minosaur, of course, everybody remembers, is the creature that she saw down in the living waters on Mandalore. So this is the first she's actually talking about it. And so the armor doesn't really believe her. And she's like, I saw a live one. So I, and then it ends. That's it. Um, Carl Weathers did a great job. Not his fault at all. The fault is that I think this could have been at least 10 minutes longer, especially when you had um, an episode that was about 54 minutes last week. And when I mean 54, it was 59 technically, but you're talking about once the credits run and everything else. But I don't know. I just I had a lot of like that's it. And look, I understand. Early in the season, you had an episode that was like 40 some odd. That's perfect. If you can make an episode that's around right around 40 to 45 minutes, that's perfect. That gets you going. That's a lot, and you can But I don't know. I just didn't. I'm willing every single show. It doesn't matter if it's a streaming show. It doesn't matter if it's a television show. Whatever. There's usually one bad or poor season. You can always attribute it to it. Um, the thing is, take Game of Thrones for example. Game of Thrones was a remarkable show. Won a lot of Emmys for a lot of people. Production design, visual effects, the whole 9 yards. The problem is the final season of that show was terrible. And that's what people remember. And that's when you can put together a show like that for 5 or 6 or 7 years and get all these awards, the expectation is there. So when you come out and have a really crummy show when it's last season, that's what people remember. And that's why I think House of the Dragon 2 was a huge hit because people were like, you know what? We know what kind of um, expectations, we know what kind of thing you have. We've seen it before. And you're just throwing this together for the last season. Um, that being said, I think The Mandalorian this is going to be the weakest season. When we look back 4, 5, 6 years from now, okay, we are going to say, you know what? Season 3, The Mandalorian, was the weakest season, easily. Because it's one of those things where the 3 out of the 4 episodes, I haven't liked. I haven't liked. And the thing is, it's one of my major problems, and I've said this before, one of my major problems is that at the end of season 2, okay, I thought the whole Roku thing was wrapped up. Now, there were a couple of episodes in Book of Boba Fett, which I've not seen and I don't intend on seeing, that now when he shows up in the beginning of season 3, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? That should have been wrapped up. He should have been taken away and lived happily ever after. Um, and that wasn't the case. Okay. So beyond that, um, that being said, this is just not done it. This was another very episodic, and I understand it's episodic, very episodic, cut and dry, bland episode. And when we look back 5 years from now, when this is done, we're gonna say, you know what, this was the worst season. And if this is leading up to something, then fine. Hopefully it does, because season 4 is already written. And I hope for their sake that this is not, they've got 4 episodes left. I hope that they're going to do something spectacular. Okay. Now, I understand every single show has ebbs and flows. I'm willing to accept that. But this has been very, very, unless they come out and just knock our socks off in the last 2 to 3 episodes, which they could do. Um, but that's it. I mean, I really there's not much to say here, guys. There really isn't. Boring isn't the right word. There was some action and adventure and everything else, and that was cool. Some laughs, but it's the same. We're it's like we're on a treadmill. We're doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Okay, they need to really start kicking it up into high gear. Okay, hopefully that will happen episode 5, episode 6. Okay. Um, Otherwise, this is going to be a very subpar year. for them. And I mean, I'll say it again. This will be the weakest season of this show, hands down. And I have no doubt in my mind, okay, that the viewership is down a lot because everybody was expecting something completely different. And, you know, I don't know. So, I mean, we got the little conversation. We're probably going to see something with the what they're doing is they're teasing obviously the Minosaur, okay? Or I'm sorry, not Minosaur, Mythosaur. The Mythosaur. Um and that's going to have, some serious repercussions. There had better not be a cliffhanger about it or in some capacity. Um that's just I'm going to be really pissed off about that because they've been teasing this the whole season. So, we'll see. I can't it will be if they're building this up to something major, major, okay? Okay. And from what I understand that is true, or from what I've gathered and what people have said and everything else. We'll see. But yeah, I was not impressed, guys. I was not impressed at all. And you know, I mean, we'll go into next week and we'll see what happens. And I hope things get better. I'm not going to stop watching the show, okay? Um, but I'm definitely my expectations now are much lower. So it's one of those things where they're going to have to really get me back and put me back in that conversation with, the doctor and her and the whole that was so fascinating. That was so fascinating on so many levels. What happened to the doctor? Is he dead? We imagine he's dead. What happened to her? Is she going to get caught? Maybe and hopefully next week we go back to that. If they're going to alternate weeks, okay, fine. But as I said at the beginning of the episode, this could have been a lot longer and much more content put in there. And that's not Carl's fault. Carl Weathers did a phenomenal job. So, anyways, guys, that's it. I was super brief. I mean, you know, it's almost as long as the episode is. The episode was 33 minutes. This is just about 23 minutes. So, but yeah, and that's it. Guys, I know a couple of you popped in here and just looked or whatever. Anybody who's out there possibly going to see the stream, please hit the like and subscribe button. I'm, trying to get everybody to see this. I want everybody to have this content. I've got a ton of stuff coming up on the channel. I've got ideas to restart my Patreon for Flashback Fridays and Rewatch Wednesdays and Mob Mondays and all that good stuff. And don't forget, we've got John Wick coming out, this weekend. I'm not going to be going to see that, but I will be going to see Air and Super Mario Brothers. And then we got a huge summer coming up for you guys, all here on the channel, all for free. You're getting more content on here at the channel than you are, having to pay for these streaming services. Um, yeah, don't forget our perfect movie series. This month we did Heat, the Robert De Niro Al Pacino film, 1996, directed by Michael Mann. Perfect, in my opinion. That's why we put it on the perfect movie series. I have an idea what we're going to do for April, so that will be good. And yeah, guys, just come back, getting shows up here every single day. And okay, that's about it. That's all I got. So, do the 3 things you need to do: be safe, be careful, and have a great weekend. I'm David Steele, and you have been watching Real Talks. Bye bye.